Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidtless Live. Yes, we're back again. I'm Kurt Schmidt. I'm the president at Foundry, and this show is meant to educate and inspire leaders in design and technology. I'm really excited today. I've got an amazing guest, one of my favorite people to talk to, especially around the idea of education and user experience design. So today, before we get started, I do have to make a quick plug, though, obviously, as always. We are hiring at Foundry, so make sure you check out foundrymakes.com/careers. We're looking for developers, but if you have a lot of talent and you're looking for a cool place to work, why not just hit us up? We're always open to chatting with folks. So check it out, foundrymakes.com/careers. And one other quick thing I wanted to talk about, I'm super proud of the team because we did make the Inc. 5000 list this year, which means we're one of the fastest growing companies in the country. Crazy. I don't know. It's all because of the team and the amazing work they did. So I'm really excited for them and for where we go from here. So with that being said, I want to jump right into my conversation with Mr. McLean Donnelly. McLean, how are you today?
Hello, how are you doing? Just to jump on that, you all have an amazing team at the Foundry.
Thank you.
Pre-COVID, we were doing some work with some youth-based nonprofits and needed some folks in the industry to help out with some volunteerism, and your team showed up in a huge way.
Thank you.
So they're talented, but they're good people too. So you can do well, do good. Look them up. It's a great place to work and a really fulfilling work environment.
Thank you, McLean. I really appreciate that. Well, let's talk about where you're at, the Makery. What do you do over there, and what's kind of your day to day in your role?
Yeah, I spent 10 years of my career in the corporate world. I was VP of design for Shutterstock, design leadership at Expedia. I also earned my MBA. So I was kind of intensely involved in kind of e-commerce, scaled UX UI leadership for about a decade. And, to be candid, when I moved back to Minnesota, that gravitational pull, it always pulls us back.
It does, doesn't it? I moved away for a while too, and you can't stay away long.
Yeah, to be honest, I was ready just to look at a different problem set. And so I've really been intensely and passionately focused on design education for the last 2 years, both in my own education. I'm getting my doctorate in education. I teach at the University of Minnesota as well as the University of Denver. And also our company, the Makery Group, is a social enterprise. And really what we do is we provide free UX design education for high school students. UX design education doesn't exist in most public high schools.
No.
Which is too bad, because for my doodlers out there, if you can write a graphic novel, if you can have some skills like that, there are real exciting, fulfilling careers ahead of you at places like the Foundry. And so my company, the Makery Group, our mission is to help the next generation makers. So we provide free high school design education, and then to kind of pay the bills, we work with a really amazing group of clients providing digital strategy and UX UI design services.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited you're here because I have so much to talk to you about, because I have a lot of questions that I get asked all the time about how to find a job in user experience design, but also how to grow your career once you're already in UX design. So I want to start out with what might seem like an obvious question to you and me, but to other people, I find it can be challenging for people. But how important is mentorship in user experience design that you found, besides just the education and the certification piece?
Yeah, my disclaimer. I am one person with one set of life experiences, so I am a focus group of one. So consider everything I say with the appropriate filter. There are some very smart people who probably have a different angle on things. So that's my kind of preamble. I think the reason why I stumbled into design was the culture of mentorship. For every team I've ever worked with, for every outside of work collaboration, for things like this, I think intuitively with design comes that sort of empathy and sympathy, at the same time. And so, our community has always had a culture of mentorship. And I think we all can think of one or two designers or teachers that have really reached out and changed the course of our professional and sometimes our personal lives. And so, uh, it doesn't need to be formal. I found formal mentorship programs are tricky to manage, administer, scale. But if you're able to really find someone that resonates with you, and you reach out and say, "Hey, could we get a cup of coffee once a month? I need a sounding board." People are thrilled to step up and help out.
Yeah.
And then as you grow in your career, as best you can, pass it on, to the makers coming up.
Yeah, and to be honest, the mentors choose you. So, but you also get 100% of what you don't ask for, right? So, if you're not out there being intentional, like you just said, McLean, about asking for that mentorship, it's not going to just show up at your doorstep, right?
I mean, exactly it. And I think designers are welcoming, inclusive people. And the great thing about our profession is it doesn't take much just to send a nice, thoughtful LinkedIn note and say, "Hey, can I get 30 minutes of your time for an informational interview?" and see how it goes from there. I think the other point about mentorship, and I hope we can get into this a little later, is mentorship. Really, in many ways, is such a foundational skill set for leadership. Um, you know, Management is important, and management kind of gets a bad knock in design. Um, but leadership is the ability to really sit down with folks in your profession, out of your profession, and teach what you've learned,
Right.
why it's important. And the inverse is true too. There's reverse mentorship. I learn a lot from the students I work with.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's
and
what's
so
so
it's
great about
really,
being a mentor to people. You learn so much more than you probably impart.
yeah, it's kind of like school. The more I'm in school, the less I know. I hear you on that.
Yeah, well, that's why, I feel like the mentorship sort of thing is hard for people because they don't want to reach out to these, these people with these big titles and stuff. And it's like you got to remember they were you at one point too. And I don't care what their background was. They were insecure. They were still learning how to present their work, how to sell their work, right? How to do all those things because honestly, for new people in user experience design, I think no matter what your skill set is and what your talent is, but there's the people skills, the presentation skills that take time to learn. And because presenting your work and giving context to the choices you've made, I think is one of the hardest things to learn. And you've kind of got to learn by the school of hard knocks a bit, right? I mean,
You do.
how else can you learn?
And a quick kind of tangent to mentorship is, and kind of more on the professional track, is internships. So, for any designers out there that maybe are a senior UX UI designer or UX UI lead, and someone kind of on the cusp of management, I really think that providing internships at your company is a no brainer. Interns provide a wonderful perspective on seeing things differently. They also can help with some of the production work, but it's a great way for emerging design leaders to really work out their own skill sets in mentorship, leadership, management. And that's really how I kind of grew as a manager. So for the UX UI designers out there that are looking to kind of test out their leadership skills, getting a internship program up and running at your company is a pretty easy, good step
Yeah.
into kind of building some of those skill sets for yourself.
Yeah, and like you said, getting that experience as soon as possible obviously is very important. But there's so many different ways that over the last, I mean, since you and I had started in UX and working in it, things have changed so much. For example, and I wanted to share this real quick, is that this sort of disruption in the higher education market that's been going on. And so, here we've got, Google new certificates, um, and they've got project manager, and look at that UX designer there. So you've got folks that are, this is median wage. These are sorts of things. I feel like Google entering into the UX sphere, just into the higher education sphere, is pretty intense, don't you think? I mean, it's really saying something because one that they are to work in the world right now. I mean, besides Apple and Amazon, there's really no other like um there's no General Motors like there was 40 years ago, or Ford, or whatever. Like Google's the place to be. And if Google's saying we're gonna decouple this, and for instead of for whatever it is, 30-40 grand a year for a $300 certificate, you can get certified from us, this high-end brand. You've got these boot camps from the U of M, from Prime Digital Academy. Things have just changed so much, and so now there's so many different offerings out there. How do you know what to choose
Where
as
do
a
you start?
designer these days? Because it all sounds amazing, right?
Sometimes. Look, the design education is tricky. I'm a professor at the University of Minnesota, and the U of M doesn't have a minor in UX. They don't have a major. They don't have a master's. And really, the kind of sticking point is that the pace of our profession moves so much faster than that of academia. By the time we would get a course up and running on teaching Figma or Sketch, some new tool would be coming out. Not that it's all tooling, but that's the inherent kind of complication of academia and design education. I think the other point is that so many design schools are still really kind of research or kind of graphic design or more kind of tactile design related functions first.
Yep.
It's sculpting, it's photography. And so there really isn't industry perspective on like, here are the desk skills we need to teach so that if you graduate from a traditional university, you can get hired. It's incredibly difficult to graduate from a design school and get hired as a UX UI designer. Partially because of the pre-professional curriculum gap.
Yeah.
And two, just the role of a junior UX designer is tricky because you need a pretty mature organization to kind of take someone in and create the scaffolding so they can have continued success at your company.
Yep.
So what you're seeing is for-profit, venture-backed educational companies providing, these kind of certificates to kind of get people up and running in the profession. And candidly, I'd say it's really, really mixed. I think for some folks who are completely new to UX UI, maybe you're working at a co-op, some of these boot camps, can be really effective in kind of really giving you a big shift in skills so that you can kind of enter the design workforce. Some of them are really just predatory and taking, you don't need to spend $20,000 to get the education that you're getting. And I'm just kind of candid about that because I think as an educator myself, there is ethics in education. I almost think it's like nursing. Like, I think there's a code of ethics that is beholden in education. And candidly, some of these for-profit ventures are not interested in student experience. They're interested in profitability. And so I think like when you're choosing your educational path, be very mindful of the organization that you're investing your very hard-earned dollars with. And the larger point is that, and this is an unpopular opinion, but the number one determinant of whether or not you're going to have a successful, fulfilling career in user experience design is the skills. Skills are more important than degrees. And your team is amazing. Like a lot of folks at the Foundry don't have 4-year degrees,
No.
But they've learned the skills, they've practiced the skills, they've understand how they need to learn, how they need to work. They're lifelong learners.
Yep.
And I think that's really the missing point, is that I see these designers like, I need a portfolio, I need a certificate.
Yep.
I'm like, no, you don't. You need to learn user flows, wireframing, UI design, evaluative research, generative research, and the soft skills of how to present your work. And so for those out there, like, yes, design education is good. It can get you up and running,
Yep.
but it's not going to be a silver bullet. You need to really understand how you learn and build an 18-month kind of professional development track
Yeah.
to ensure that you're kind of continuing learning. It's like guitar. You can't just get a guitar and go.
Right.
You got to learn chords and scales before you can play free falling. And so that's
Which you
kind
never
of my,
should, by the way.
yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on the, you know,
Anyways, no, but you're dead on. I think getting into it without a personal plan, but too often what we do just in society is we wait for the plan to be presented to us. Here's Google telling us what the plan should be because they're a big brand. Because we do certifications, that means certifications are great because we're Google, right? Or it's the same thing I've had with designers in other organizations I've worked with. They're waiting for the organization to present their career path or their career plan to them without creating it on their own, alongside other peers and mentors to figure out what opportunities are there instead of waiting for the organization to present those opportunities, trying to figure out how to create those yourself. So I could go on for days about that.
well, in this design, I always thought of my design practice as partially transactional and partially like transformational. And I think that people sometimes forget that design is a it's a transactional business. You pay me to do this and I provide that service. And that's good because it creates a measurable value of the services that we provide. But you need to understand like the skill sets associated with that. You need to be able to know how to like set up a project, do client meetings, and I don't care if you're in-house or out-house. You need to know how to close work. You need to know how, like all these things that it takes, like setting up invoicing, payroll, all these things that it takes just to run a business within design, or even like dealing with stakeholders, I think is a really overlooked skill set. And
Yeah.
also, like, there is a level of hustle in this business.
Yep.
And I don't mean that like trickery. I
Right.
mean that like most people start off by doing skills-based volunteerism,
Mm-hmm.
or they're building a WordPress website for their neighbor's coffee shop down
Yep.
the street,
Yep.
or they're doing production work for a company like us, hourly rates, and then you move to like it's just like being a cook. It's like you mop, you chop, and then you get to cook.
Yeah.
And I think that you really need to be a self-starter because certificates are getting devalued because there's so many of them.
Sure.
It really takes intense discipline and being a self-starter, because work gets work. And so for anyone out there, like my big thing is always is like find a nonprofit you like and redesign their donation
Yeah.
flow.
Offer your
You
services or
know,
just go ahead and redo it and present it to them.
they'll give you an award. You'll have a great case study. You'll work the wires, work the flows, work the UI, do user testing. You'll have a good portfolio case study that's service learning. And that sort of project then gets your next project and the next and the next. And that's how you
Yeah.
really, quote unquote, break in, to this business as I've seen it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, McLean, is that I've seen that in a lot of student portfolios that I've reviewed, especially in the last year or so, is that when they get out of school and they've got their portfolio kind of set, they kind of just stop. And it just sits there for months and months and months. And exactly to your point, and then when I bring up the point of like, well, why can't you do some work on your own, or why can't you do that? And they're like, well, a big part of my education was I was trained to be a part of a team, and so I don't have all the skill sets. And so a lot of times my retort is, well, then grab one of those people you went to school with and team up with them on a project or something together. I hear a lot of excuses is what I'm getting. And so,
Well, and the other point I'd make is that you're looking to get into a career in technology and design, and your first job in technology and design might not be as a technologist or a designer. Like you might start off working in customer service. You might start off as a product analyst, as a BA, as a Scrum coach. There's so many as a QA. There's so many other soft spots in the technology and design marketplace that is a little easier for entry level positions than
Yep.
UX UI.
Yep.
And I'm always saying, like, get in and then you can start swimming. It's a heck of a lot easier to be like a product analyst and move to UX UI. It's a lot easier to go from customer service at a technology company to UX UI.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great first job in this industry, and you're going to learn a heck of a lot that most UX UI designers won't know.
Yeah.
And you'll really become like a good 360 view. Like my first job in UX UI, I was writing tooltip copy for a health insurance platform, for real. And I did that for 6 months. And and it's like, then you get that, you learn that, and you move it on. So be strategic about some of those lower barrier to entry jobs. And it's a lot easier to cut over once you're in.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, I think it isn't just about just getting in, but it's understanding the business side, which we've talked about a bunch here on the show already. Is being a great designer means you're really understanding the business side of what you're working on and why it exists and how it's going to make money and all of those things, right?
I mean, I am not the best designer in the world, and I knew that early on. I've never taken a design class in my life. I don't know if I should say that, but I haven't.
Well, nobody's, it's not going to be recorded and put on YouTube, so you're fine.
It's all good. Like, I'm writing a book on it. Like, so what I'd say where I was able to really catapult my career was I was a good UX UI designer, right? I was good at research, good at strategy. I could hold a room, but I found myself in meetings with product owners, with clients, with business leaders, and they just did not understand the value of good design. They just thought it's make it look pretty. And I was like, okay, they don't inherently understand the value of a Figma prototype, but the CFO understands the value of bounce rate reduction. They understand the value of increased conversion. They understand the value of reduced customer service calls. And you don't need to have an MBA, and you don't necessarily need to know how to do like accounting. But the one thing that catapulted my career and was really the reason why I was able to get professional experiences at Expedia in Seattle, at Shutterstock in New York City, was that I was one, proactive in proposing design solutions to solve business problems without being asked. Here, I'd say here, all like my mentor at Expedia always told me, like, always have something in your back pocket.
Mm.
And I love that. And because most of the time that's exactly what people are looking for.
Yeah.
That's how you get promoted, is just so that. And then also just like when starting out any design project, like just do a proper competitive analysis, and
Yep.
like look at your competition. How do they make money? What's their pricing? What's good about their business? What's bad about their business?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need the MBA to do that, but like every project I ever start, I start with the business landscape and then work in towards UX UI design. So that's a great place to start. And hey, for a plug, like Khan Academy, an amazing tech nonprofit, they have these 2-week courses in finance, business strategy. Look, you're going to need a strong cup of coffee or an IPA. It's a little dry, but like it's that sort of lifelong learning that is really going to move you from breaking in UX UI, because the whole point isn't to, it's great to get a job and that's amazing. And for some people work is very differently, but if you're looking to evolve in your design career, then you're going to have to also commit to being a lifelong learner.
Yep.
Because the industry is going to complete reinventing itself, and you could get really stagnant real quick if you don't kind of build up that habit.
Yeah, and to your point, it's also about, back to what we talked about, is building those presentation skills and explaining and selling your work. Is if you understand, when you've got that boss person saying, well, I don't like that color blue, and you've got 14 pages of research on why blue is the exact color that you need to go, because you've done the research, you understand the competitive landscape, you understand the business opportunity with blue, as a poor example, but it also, to your point, it levels you up in that person's eyes, that you're not just a person who's there to put boxes and arrows on a screen, that you're there to help the business improve with the work that you're doing.
I agree. And like, I've managed scale design organizations. I've probably hired 75 designers in my life. Every junior designer I've ever seen does three things. Like, they just show the high fidelity work, and if you just put a high fidelity thing on the screen, that's all people can react to. And so they're only going to react to the blue button. And so if you properly structure a design critique with like your competitive analysis, your user flows, your wireframes, all the thinking and hard work that went into the decision-making process you went through, then you've almost like built a case. And it's hard to be like, well, this person's done, 4 sprints of research. They're pretty well prepared. Then it's a different type of conversation. I
Yeah.
think the other kind of 2 quickies is the quality, right or wrong, like at companies, people communicate through presentations.
Yep.
They communicate through PowerPoint decks.
Yep.
I learned this the hard way. Like I used to like have like how many days since I did a PowerPoint, and right or wrong, like it is a communication tool within corporate America. And the ability to put together a succinct, professional presentation is going to provide lifelong value in your professional career. And the last point I'd say is, I think designers misstep on like a design presentation versus a facilitation. So like when you're presenting your work, you're not trying to necessarily sell it, and inherently when you try and do that, there's a personal connection, and I've seen designers take it so personally.
Yeah.
I've always I'm so deeply affected when people critique my work. I think it's helpful. And so when I structure my own conversations with clients or my team or anything like that, it's a facilitation.
Yep.
And you're a neutral facilitator to hear what different people have to say. And the quicker you can kind of abstract your own feelings from your work and really be able to objectively hear what other people have to say, that's feedback strengthens work. It really does. So socialize your work early and often, and think of yourself as a neutral facilitator. And I think those meetings will be more productive for you and the folks you're trying to share your work with.
Well, and back to the earlier point, if you're basing a lot of your design work on business decisions, business research, those types of things, it's not just you personally, sitting there with your beret on and your palette, I don't, maybe yellow gradient. Yes. And a drop shadow. Yes. Versus being able to speak to those choices because of the competitive research, just like you mentioned, the research you're doing internally, all those different things, right?
And ask them what type of feedback you're looking for. I think designers always forget that. And you'll be presenting with a director of product, a director of engineering, maybe a CEO. These are for the most part, very accomplished, seasoned people who have a lot of relevant experiences that can help give you greater context for your work. They can talk about well, here's what we're seeing in the market. Here's what our margins are. They can provide really, really important information that can kind of build up your own business skills. And so just say, hey, I want to know a little bit more about how our business model works. As we go through this, can you call out some things that might be helpful in my own development? And so just being clear about where you have gaps and the type of feedback that will be really helpful is participatory and really includes people in the conversation in a different way rather than what do you think of this screen, which is a tough conversation to have.
It is. And it makes sense to say, it's not about selling your work. It's about going in expecting to improve your work.
Feedback's a gift.
Yep. Feedback's a gift.
That it is.
Well, okay. And I want to shift gears just for the last part here to talk about how to, if you're, maybe I've been working as a designer for a few years and I'm looking to move up, I'm looking to move and get promoted and do those things. I know we've touched on a number of those things here, but I've seen user experience designers move into all sorts of areas of product, product management, product ownership, even into chief, design officers, different sorts of things. Um, you know, is it that mentorship? How do I figure out what I should be doing with my career and where I should be taking it? What are the things I should be taking stock of?
Yeah, and work is different for everybody. And uh, some some designers are really happy going headphones on and cranking out work, and God bless them. That's awesome. People have different jobs, and so I respect what you need out of your work so that you can be a happy and fulfilled person. And I really mean that. And I think we have a lot of the Michael Scott syndrome in UX UI design, where we just promote the top designer. It's like, well, you design well, so you should lead the team.
Yep.
But I also think as designers, there's this kind of perception that management is meetings or administration, and I think two things. Like, one, there's been very little training in design management.
Yeah.
Very few design schools, they're teaching color theory. They're
Yep.
not teaching
Yep.
like cross functional matrix change management. Like, um, and companies largely don't have much as far as like corporate development. Some do, some good ones, but a lot don't. And so I think there's like this perception that like design management is this bureaucratic position, and that's probably just because that's what we've encountered. Because a lot of our design managers haven't been trained or really deeply considered their own management and leadership skills. And I would push back on that to say design management and leadership, they really are Batman and Robin, is the most fulfilling work, some of the most fulfilling work I've done in my career.
Yep.
And it's also scaling yourself. Like when, like at Shutterstock, I was 30, and I was the VP of design there.
Yep.
I had 28 employees in Denver, Montreal, New York City, Berlin, and we could just you can do such amazing work if you have 25 amazing designers. It is mind-boggling how awesome it is to scale design at that level. And so for those, really, so one, it's like it's a fulfilling part of evolving as a designer. And as far as design leadership, I'd say there's two quick things that I would recommend to kind of, how do you like evangelize, how do you grow design, how do you work outside of your organization? Because when you're a design leader, you're not working in, you're working out. I think there's two things that I found that are really effective kind of ways to kind of get a coalition together to be a more design-centric company. The first is workshops. Just to be really candid, like the ability to run like an amazing half-day workshop on like design thinking, UX UI optimization. I don't care if it's like improving onboarding process for how your company hires, the lunch line, invoicing with lawyers, but like the ability to just get different people that haven't connected with UX UI in a really fun and engaging half-day workshop is a great way to kind of expand design thinking and the value of services that you provide at a company. And people love working with designers. We have Post-its,
Yeah.
we have whiteboards. So just being really good at like a half-day workshop was invaluable in my career. The other thing is like, you're going to work for companies that aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, design is here, let's do what you say. It's not like that. It's so romanticized that so many companies aren't user-centric. They really aren't terribly mindful of like the actual user experience. And the way I found that you can really help reframe and build proper empathy within organizations is through accessibility initiatives. 1 in 5 people in our country have a permanent or temporary disability.
Like these.
That me too. And um, accessibility is something that everyone on a personal level understands and empathizes with and sympathizes with.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have all the legal reasons that we need to do accessibility, all the great SEO reasons, all the code cleanup reasons that go with it. But becoming like an accessibility champion, building an accessibility policy statement for your company, doing quarterly accessibility reviews, I've never found an organization that doesn't get behind that. And that sort of like initiative and thinking plants the seeds to be a really user-centric company. And so workshops, accessibility really help with design leadership. And that's like kind of growing your influence and the way the company thinks about the market and your business. So those are two that I've just like
Those are great.
hit every job I've ever had. I've done those, and that's how I got to where I got to go a little
That's
bit.
awesome. Well, McLean, I could go on talking to you for days because I have so many
Me
things.
too.
But you have to come back on the show. I really appreciated you taking the time today. And if people want to know more about the Makery, you can check out their site here at themakerygroup.com.
Just real quick, if you go to the bottom, sorry about this. If you go to the bottom and then hit the Makery U under impact.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah. This is the one thing I'd plug. So we've got a lot of students going to be learning from home this fall, and it's tough. It's tough just to learn via Zoom. For our high school students, this is a free and fun and engaging introduction to UX UI course that we've built. You design a really fun little wireframe for a coffee shop. And whether you're a teacher, a parent, or a high school student, this is self-directed learning. It's great for our visual learners. It's tactile learning. It's free. We don't get anything from it. So this is a great resource for some students in the fall if you're looking to pick up a couple new skills, or if you're a teacher looking to kind of round out a lesson plan or two. So check it out. Might be helpful for a few of you out there as you gear up for fall learning.
Cool. Well, like I said, McLean, I appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate you and for coming on the show to talk to me about UX education and how to keep it moving along. So thank you.
And thanks for all the work you do. It's behind the scenes, but this guy mentors a heck of a lot of people. He shows up, he talks the talk, but he walks the walk. And you really do that. And I think that's what's so wonderful about the design profession, is that you can do well and do good.
Yep.
And I think we're all about that, especially during these challenging times.
100%. 100%. All right, McLean, thank you again. Hang on one second. I'll be right back with you. So everybody, remember, we are hiring at Foundry. So check out foundrymakes.com/careers. I'd love to chat with you if you're interested in working for, just, one of the 5,000, companies, or whatever. So, all right, I'll stop. Okay. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button and the other things, because we've got a lot of great shows coming up. We're going to be focusing a lot, like I said, on mentorship, on career development, on how to build your audience around, in coalition around your work and to grow your career. So I'm so pleased that you joined me. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.